What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the 30th edition of the Tuesday Track Talk podcast. My name is Kellen. I'm your Jackman.
I'm your tire changer, Cam.
And I'm your gas man, Cam.
And we got quite the episode today. I know we say that every week, but we're going to cover a little bit of everything from dirt late models to the NASCAR Cup Series to wing sprint cars to the big Midwest season opener at Dell's Raceway Park. So we got quite the array and gamut of racing for whatever tickles your fancy. But before we get into it, what's new, guys? What have we been up to for a week now?
Well, obviously, me and you met up at Dell's this past weekend, which we'll talk about that eventually here. But I was at Cedar Lake the weekend before Dell's this past weekend. Race season's back.
Yeah,
it's back.
You kind of ride that high. You get back to the racetrack and you kind of get in that zone of like, all right, we're full swing now.
And especially like looking at our schedule of races, like there's a lot more piling up on that list every weekend. So
absolutely. Cam?
Not a whole lot. I unfortunately was not at the racetrack with the two stones. As you guys were down a stone. But no, me and Carolyn took a quick trip out to Colorado. Saw our cousin in Colorado Springs and saw Denver a little bit, and crammed as much as we could do in the 3 days we were there. So it was fun. I would 10 out of 10 recommend if you ever get the chance to go to Colorado. It was pretty cool. And flight was out of Minneapolis, direct. Frontier was like $60 round trip and hour 15, hour 20 flight. So it was fun. But I think Van Grohl can speak to it better than anybody else. Planes are just not, traveling on a plane is just not ideal. Well, I guess you're a higher up though. You fly private, you get to go right. Yeah.
And even our private,
you wouldn't know the pain of a common folk.
Okay, easy. The thing was with our private, we're the same plane. It is basically a small commercial plane. And a lot of the flights that I'm on, they are an hour and a half, 2-hour flights. So your ass is pretty sore by the time you actually get to where you needed to go. And then you hop in a car to go to wherever you need to go from there. So
yeah.
And it's just as time crunch as it is normal flight. If you're not there on time, they're gonna leave your ass behind and you're screwed. So
yeah. And other than that, not a whole lot new. Good racing though this past weekend.
So speaking of the good racing, let's go ahead and touch on our first race recap of the week. This past weekend we had the World of Outlaw late models. They were at they were up here
Farmer City.
Farmer City for the Illini 100, kind of a 2-day showdown. And I'm gonna have to say, if you haven't seen the video or our lovely good friend Nick Hoffman, his tweet, night one absolutely took the cake, if you want to see it that way.
I threw the comment out that was probably out of the weekend of racing on the national tour side of things, that was probably the better race, the best race of the weekend.
Yep. And if you haven't seen it yet, do go watch the video. We'll just skip to the end because that's what it was all about. Nick Hoffman leading the race. He had half a backstretch on him going into 3. He ran up on the top. Bobby Pierce kind of followed suit, put it to the floor, and was going to hang on for dear life. And Nick Hoffman, he caught the wall right where the wall ended coming out of 4. And the dude left the track. They kind of got together, and he managed to win that feature out of literally off the racetrack.
Yep.
As he said, he tried to do his best Bo Duke impersonation, and by golly, he did. As he would say, he got his hot dog emoji caught in the wheel in 4.
Yep.
He tried to give that one away. Yeah, I mean, what a great follow on Twitter. He's a good follow, but yeah, the finish of that race is absolutely electric. So
And so you could almost argue that was in Atlanta like finish.
Yeah.
If you watch NASCAR and you saw the Atlanta finish with Suarez and Blaney and I think it was
Kyle
Busch.
Busch.
But no, I mean that was Nick Hoffman, good old fashioned. Don't lift until you see God or the checkered. He just was gonna stand on the loud pedal, and I don't think I don't know that I've ever seen that somebody win a race from off the track, and that didn't bother him one bit that he was off the track. He was on the gas the whole way through.
Yeah.
yeah.
The old, as he would probably say too, the old shitbox did its job.
Yeah. He banged the boards pretty hard in 4 coming through there, and Pierce was just close enough that he could have a shot at it. And when you watch the video coming out of the feature, even Hoffman, he just kind of stood there like he got out of the car, or not Hoffman, Pierce. He kind of got out of the car and he's like, "Well, who won the feature?"
Yeah.
And he wanted to see video, and he kind of, you could see he was confused. He was looking around like, "Well, I want some answers."
Yeah.
But yeah, so Nick Hoffman, he gets it done on night 1. So
Won by 700ths of a second, if we're at all
yep,
curious.
yeah. Kind of rounding out your top finishers for that feature: Hoffman, Bobby Pierce, Cade Dillard with a good run, Turbo, Tim McCready, Bishop, and then Kyle Bronson. So that kind of rounds out your top for night 1, excuse me. Night 2, a lot of the same names at the top. All but one in that same little group in there. In the top finish, and let's just put it this way: that Pierce had the car to beat on night 2.
Oh yeah. He made up for not winning night 1.
Correct. He said, "Yeah, we're not going to let that happen again." So, again, Hoffman with another good run. Kind of rounding out your night 2 feature: Bobby Pierce, Nick Hoffman, Turbo, Kyle Bronson, Brandon Shepard, Chris Madden, and Tim McCready.
Shepard, looking at the results here, definitely your hard charger for night 2, gaining a whopping 18 spots, going from 23 to 5. Turbo didn't have himself a bad night either, went 10 to 3, so he got a +7 out of it. Just to tell you how much Pierce dominated, Pierce won by 8 seconds, almost 9 seconds.
Yeah.
He was in literally a whole nother zip code.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's interesting to see when you look at it, like all of those 2 groups that finished those features there in the top 6, Dillard and Madden are the only 2 that are not common denominators in that grouping. So the same guys, loaded, unloaded, ready to go, and they were just rocking with that bad boy. So Pierce, Hoffman, Turbo, Bronson, and McCready and Bishop all common names in that top 6. So good points night for them. Even for Turbo, who's a Lucas Oil guy. Hell of a go at it.
I will say one thing. If Nick Hoffman ever listens to this, I'm not sure, but if you ever get the chance to meet him, he was absolutely phenomenal last year when we got to meet him at Cedar Lake.
He had a comment about a certain individual.
Chris Madden weren't on the best of terms at the time after Chris gave him the number 1 signal. But no, he was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, his trailer was all closed up and he was just standing there and he was awesome to talk to. And honestly, this is solid weekend for him. And if you look at the point standings right now, he's somebody that's sitting in third right now. Bishop, Chris Madden, and then Nick Hoffman. Obviously, with Pierce's penalty, he's a little bit back, but Nick Hoffman getting Rookie of the Year last year, and then now win and second place. We talk about it only takes 1 weekend for these guys to start getting confident and clicking them off. Maybe this is the start for Nick Hoffman.
Well, and I saw this thing. They updated the points for all the World Outlaws, and I actually got it pulled up here. So Brandon Shepard's your points leader right now. Chris Mannett's 24 back. Hoffman's 34 back. K Dillon 36, Tyler Burning 82, and then you get to Bobby Pierce at 122. So obviously the readjustment and the points penalty has definitely helped him be able to get back into the mix. And it'll be only a couple a couple of good races that he'll be back in that mix, especially when you get 150 points for a win. So
And how ironic is it that, I mean, nothing's happened yet, but Nick Hoffman was voicing his opinion after the penalties, and um, Bobby Pierce's mom was making a few comments. And how ironic is it that all of a sudden, 2 nights in a row, these guys are standing right next to each other on the podium. Everything's been cordial up until this point, but
yeah.
you maybe add a little bit bigger purse here, and it's going to be elbows up for those two.
About to say Hoffman and Devin Moran are tied for the most wins so far this season, both at 2.
Yeah. Devin Moran being a Lucas Oil guy.
Yep.
So yeah, pretty cool deal there. Obviously night one was the big storyline, but good race, and Farmer City just looks like an awesome racetrack.
Yes, it does.
Always again, it's one of those short tracks that just produces somebody trying to tear the right rear out of it, and then you got guys just looping the bottom, making time on the bottom. So yeah, hell of a weekend for those guys. Good to see them back rocking and rolling here for World of Outlaws. So kind of going from one World of Outlaws to the dirt wing sprints. And Grohl, I'll kick this one to you.
Yeah, so night one, let me just make sure I got my dates right. Yes, night one, David Gravel dominated the World Outlaws. He led wire to wire in that one. You also had Donnie Schatz win night 2 of the World Outlaws as well. Schatz is kind of off to a pretty good start beginning of the year. He's kind of keeping his name in the mix and
Yeah,
keeping himself in the point standings as well. You also had High Limits running this weekend as well. You had Macri and Corey Day win the High Limits as well this weekend. They're on a pretty long stretch here as well as far as races going on. They're definitely getting their season ramped up. I wanted to check here, and I'm going to do that right now. I just wanted to see how many drivers were there in each division or each series. So we had 21 and 20. So we had 41 World Outlaw sprint cars. And High Limit, I know, had a pretty good amount too.
we had some of the NASCAR guys coming over.
Yep. And then some of them guys didn't exactly have the best of weekends either.
Talking about Kyle Larson in particular, finished 14th.
Yeah.
Oh, let's be honest. The guy's got a lot on his plate when you go from IndyCar to the wing sprint to then, well, IndyCar to the pole on for NASCAR to
Which that's
running
impressive in its own right.
your wing sprint car. So
we had 37 High Limit. So you're talking 78 sprint cars in action between the two series this weekend.
yeah, 2 national touring series.
Yeah.
So healthy car count for them. It's always good to see a good car count like that. It just makes the racing that much tighter and that much more competitive. And
I think this was also one of the first head-to-head weekends that they had as well.
Yep, absolutely. We're to that point now where guys are going to start going their national touring directions. So looking for whichever series that they have scheduled or put loyalty deposits down to follow. So a couple of those guys, there's a couple pretty wicked wrecks though. There's a few guys that
yeah, there were some hard tumbles this weekend.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find the one individual. I forget his name and I feel bad about it, but it was in the B main. He ended up catching flipping, which again, it was pretty nasty flip, but then he got hit pretty much right at where the front of the car would meet the roll cage, kind of right above the steering wheel. He got
Yeah.
smacked right there and ended up breaking his arm. Or no, sorry, he didn't break his arm, but he had a really bruised arm out of the whole deal. So I mean, it was good to see him walk away. You could see the track officials kind of wave the medic staff over. It's like, oh, geez, that's never good. But I could see him moving around. He was just holding his arm and
Yeah.
got out under his own power for the most part. So
And we've said it time and time again with those guys when they wreck, it's not most times with those cars, you don't just spin around and push off and you're back in the feature. It's most times when you get caught and you're pretty much going to be on your lid.
yep, you just hold on for dear life and hope you come out on the other side. Not on the other side, but on wheels at least.
Correct. So yeah, pretty
Um,
awesome to see all those different series with really good car counts. That's I mean, at the end of the day, that's what keeps this whole thing with racing going, is having good car counts, and keeps these tracks that everyone enjoys. It keeps them ticking, but also keeps the racing awesome to watch. So
second night of High Limit at RPM, fantastic show.
yeah.
Absolutely fantastic show. That track is awesome. Nice
Mhm.
little quarter mile bull ring. They put on a show.
Absolutely.
Corey
So
Day and Kerry Madison were kind of going at each other. Macri was up there for a little bit. Um, but yeah, Corey Day ultimately gets past Kerry Madison, who started from the pin, um, and gets the win out of that. I like what they do for the fast dash though. They do I don't know if you guys seen it, but they do that big roulette wheel.
yep.
Yep.
And Kerry Madsen, I was wondering I figured I knew what the zeros was, but we finally got to see it in action that Kerry Madsen got that double zero and got automatic pin in the dash.
Yeah. Yeah, another cool thing that iLimit is rolling with.
Yeah.
Kind of one programming note is you're going to be watching this on Tuesday. They will have their first midweek money series race. So, if you haven't remembered and or caught up on High Limit, they kind of have two separate series that are running together. So, the midweek series has their own points fund for a championship for that, and then they have their regular weekend series. So the midweek series gets kicked off as you're watching this tonight on April 16th at Red Dirt Raceway. So for the Red Dirt Rumble, as I mentioned, that'd be midweek money series race number 1. So if you're looking to catch that, all of that will be on Flow Racing. So got
They
some.
typically are pretty big money race as well. And just to note, Kyle Larson is committed to the full midweek schedule as well. So
Yep, absolutely. That feature is 20 grand to win, 1,500 to start. So, yeah, they'll be in Meeker, Oklahoma.
another little just bookkeeping here. Points as of now for the high limits. Tyler Courtney is your point leader. Brad Sweet second. Brett Marks third. Corey Day fourth, and Anthony Macri is in fifth place. Those guys are separated by 52 points. The top five are.
Yeah.
A few quick notes I had just on the recap on the sprint car weekend. First off, Macri getting a win. Was interesting to see that and good for him. Obviously, we don't know what happened last year, but he's back in that family-owned car. After last year, he started off the year in it and got a high limit win, and then whatever happened, family car, he didn't race in it the rest of the year, and now he's back with his family-owned car, and obviously a little break was good for him. So getting a win there, and then the other stat that I saw, this was, I believe, Donnie Schatz is 26 years has he been racing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
26 years in a row that he's had multiple wins in a year. So just I guess a kudos to him and just a consistent and
Steady Eddie.
steady Eddie. Yeah.
If we're throwing out some stats here, Corey
Oh, God.
Eliason is the only driver so far this year in high limit to run every feature.
Wow.
Oh,
He's the
interesting.
only driver.
Wow.
I heard that during the broadcast.
Well, that's you want to find yourself a points advantage. That's the way to do it. Got to be in the show, score points.
Yeah, exactly. He is currently 14th in points.
You know, that's a start to making some headway. So,
And then I thought I saw something too. Yeah, so Brad Sweet and Brent Marks are also the only two drivers to have top 10s in every feature this year as well.
damn. So that's pretty cool little couple little stats there for the wing sprint car world in terms of, and we talked about the rivalry a little bit earlier in the year, but it's good
The
to see
fact,
both of them running with good car counts on the weekend is great to see.
and I think a lot of that's got to do with being able to bring in the local guys.
Yeah.
You get a steady dose of the local guys racing as well.
And we're going to touch on that in our race preview. That's going to help us here in the Midwest because we got an absolute doozy coming up weekend. Yeah. So that kind of wraps up, I would say, the sprint car world for the weekend. And then kind of the last short race recap we got here before we dive into the big one. Hunt the Front Super Dirt Series. They had 2 nights at Alltech Raceway. Saturday night was the big one. That was the 15 grand to win. And Joseph Joyner of Hunt the Front themselves collects the $15,000 payday. Didn't get a chance to watch this, but I know earlier in the year, he ran at Alltech with the Lucas Oil, actually led a couple laps. He finished 6th in that feature, and they took that same chassis and that same motor combination back there, and they said, we got a good piece, let's go get it. And honestly, a hell of a car, a hell of a field of cars for them. With on the front, and you got the likes of Joyner, Bloomquist, Carson Ferguson, Brandon Overton, Chris Ferguson, Corey Hedgecock, Ashton Winger, Sam Seawright. So good win for them. They've been needing to kind of find their stride on some of these bigger nights. And if you haven't watched their YouTube channel, they had Jordy, one of their crewmen, went on another adventure. So he's kind of with them part-time, kind of not. But down a guy, but still finding a way to get it done. So cool deal for them to collect a big one in terms of that feature. But your feature finishes out this way. Joyner, Bloomquist, Carson Ferguson, Brandon Overton, Chris Ferguson, Sam Seawright, Corey Hedgecock, Ashton Winger, Trey Mills, and Clay Harris. So
he also had Ferguson win 9-1.
Yep. Absolutely. So yeah, good to see those guys running well down there. Yeah, kind of an interesting one after qualifying there, taking tire samples. Joseph Joyner, your fast qualifier, when he rolled the car back, he went through scales, got teched. And then when he rolled back to the pits, they said, do not take the tires off the car. And the officials came over and watched them take the tire off the car and then took samples right away. So, yeah, I know the dirt world has been a hot topic for tires and what you're doing with them and how you're going about it. And
still dealing with a little bit of residual effect of that, as we had mentioned earlier.
And that's so kind of an interesting tech tip that Hunt the Front's taken down there. So yeah, as we look at their schedule, they'll go ahead and they have a little bit of a break here. They'll be back in action April 27th at Smoky Mountain for 15 grand to win on a 1-night show. So that's where Hunt the Front currently stands. Their points have not been updated since the 13th, so we'll just kind of hang tight on that until we get an official update for the points for those guys. So that kind of puts a wrap on a little bit of dirt late model racing that we always enjoy to watch for Hunt the Front. Well,
I would last 2 notes I was gonna just point out there. can't remember exactly the Ferguson and Paler Motorsports.
Yep,
Um,
Carson.
yeah, but obviously a solid run for him getting a win on Friday night and uh, another podium finishing third on Saturday night in the big show. And also I think it's should be shouted out. Been a long time coming, but Bloomer getting back in the old car and running up front, and um, just a cool interview with him on after his second place finish. Just listen to him talking about everything he's got to learn on um, these new tires since he's been out of it a little bit, and just how he feels like his team is building momentum, and he feels like they're gonna get a win here soon. So just cool to have him back at the track, and not only at the track but running up front. So
Yeah, it's kind of the dirt late model racing is better with Bloomer in a car.
yep,
So yeah, cool couple little notes there as we wrap up on the front. But this is where we get into the big one for the weekend for us. Dell's Raceway Park for the Icebreaker 100. So you had three classes of racing. You had the Alive for 5 super late models. You had the Midwest Truck Series in action, and you also had the 602 Outlaw late models going to battle there as well. So, Van Grohl, we were sitting side by side for this one. Where do you want to start the conversation for Dells?
Well, might as well start with the trucks because I feel like we're going to go a while on the supers.
Okay.
So let's start with the trucks. Really
Yep.
good race, really competitive.
Yep.
That top 6, top 8 kind of broke away in their own little bundle, but they all stayed kind of side by side with each other there up until really, but again, it was a clean race. Only one caution in it with unfortunately Swan, who broke something on the right front. Never really saw with it, but he got kind of tangled up with somebody. I forget who the hell was it. Chester Ace because he felt bad about it too.
Brad Miller.
Miller. Yep, that's right. Yep.
They um they the leader kind of broke away, and those two ran side by side for like it felt like the whole race.
Yes.
It was just Miller was glued to the bottom, Swan was running the outside, and especially that track, it's kind of tough to hang on that outside, but
And yes, it is, but it's also one of those that you got to hit that inside line just right because if you hit that curb, it'll shoot you up too.
yep. So they did make a little contact, and Brad Miller, um, he came out and said in his interview, he said he apologized, he hated it for them, he definitely didn't mean to do it.
Said he's got one coming.
He said I've got one coming, and I respect it that went that way. So
And
yep.
probably, I don't know where the two live. I wouldn't be surprised if Brad made that trip over to Swan's garage to help him fix.
It was in Brad saying he's only going to run five of the truck races this year. So he was there for one thing and one thing only, that was win the race. But
Yep.
ultimately, what that little bump came down to, it was kind of a racing deal. It wasn't
Oh,
like
yeah,
he
absolutely.
missed it and tagged him, and that was the end of it. It was just hard racing, and he kind of slipped off a 3 through the middle of 3 and into 4, and it kind of caught him in that.
Yeah, just
Unfortunately for your big time
six
truck,
time in defending.
yeah, truck champion ends his night a little early, but let's be honest, he'll rebound and he'll find himself back in the front.
Oh,
That's for sure.
absolutely.
a quick question for you guys. So obviously I wasn't there, but you guys hear, some of these guys that are only running a handful of races, throughout the year. He said he was only running 5 races. Guess my question or just thought to you guys would be, we see this in a handful of races, guys in Cup Series, dirt, super late model, sprint cars. You think it is good or bad for the sport? Because you got both sides. You got and sometimes you got a name that's coming in that doesn't always race, so you're like, hey, good to see him. But like you said, you got guys like that are, like Kellen said, they're there for one reason and one reason only. I'll cash a check, and I don't care who I make mad because I'm gonna only race a handful of times with these guys.
So with Brad Mueller, Brad JJ Mueller, he uses the trucks to kind of fill his schedule because
Yep.
he runs the super late model weekly at Slinger, and then he also runs a dirt late model at Beaver Dam weekly as well.
Yeah.
So he kind of uses that truck as a filler for his schedule just to keep him busy.
Yeah.
And he's one of those guys that he races the hell out of a guy, but he races them super clean. One of the best guys to race.
And that kind of goes to your question, Cam, especially with this Midwest Truck Series that we have up here, is everywhere you go to unload, it's the same group of guys. So the racing is 99% of the time super clean, just because every time you unload, you're unloading with the same group of guys. It's not like you're going to a weekly show somewhere where you might run with somebody once before a tour shows up just to kind of get a test into or get some data. With these guys, it's just not like that, where there's a couple guys that probably could have moved a few people to get positions, and when you're running too wide like that, it's easy to do. But with that field, we didn't see that, and I'm gonna go on the record and say you won't see that in the truck series up here.
The other thing too with the truck series is you kind of your point of you see this guys, they race each other at the same time all the time. A lot of them only have one truck.
Yep.
If not all of them. So it's you race clean because it's the guys are going to spend a lot of time, the crews are going to spend a lot of time repairing that truck if it gets wrecked. And you know damn well you're going to get payback if you do it.
Yep. So I think to kind of go back to the bigger piece of that question, I don't mind it until it becomes a problem.
Yep.
If you're gonna junk somebody's stuff for a paycheck, don't show up.
Yep.
But if somebody like Brad, who ran clean and ran hard and was active, he was fast.
Absolutely.
He started up front and he ran well. That I really do enjoy that, because it adds to the strength of the field, and your regulars who are going to run for points. That just means, hey, if you're going to have a couple extra fast trucks, we're going to have to be ready to rock and roll, because I am running for points and I need to be there at the end to run for that season championship. So,
I would say it's no different than Kyle Busch going in the trucks or running Xfinity or anything like that. I've always enjoyed that. Yes, is it taking away money from some of these guys? Sure, but it works the same way if guys go up into Cup. But it's also for those guys in Xfinity and trucks, guys and gals, I should say. You get that opportunity to race a Kyle Busch, to race a William Byron, whomever is making that trip down to that lower division, and you get to see what they have.
yeah, you get to learn a little racecraft. Let's be honest. It's setup wise, you got to know what you got to know, but at the end of the day, it might be racecraft at a particular racetrack that could in the future translate to another track you go to.
I got two perfect examples. Kyle Busch ran the Snowball Derby one year, and he raced Eric Jones in the Snowball Derby, super late model race. And he said he needs to be in one of my cars just because of how he raced him. He beat him.
Yep.
Straight up beat him. The other example this past weekend, Corey Heim took it to Kyle Busch. They're in the closing stages of that race.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a guy can learn if you beat him. Boy, that's a lot of stock to your name.
Yeah, for sure. That's comes back to just racecraft and being aware of who you're running, and obviously you want that to create great racing. But if it comes at the expense of someone else to cash a check, I just prefer you don't unload.
Yep.
So
Midwest, we've talked about this before. Midwest has had predominantly great clean racing compared to other regions.
Yep.
We'll just say, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
And you just to reference that, you're not going to be on a highlight somewhere for somebody junking something and then you've got a brawl.
Yep. And I think our super late model race is a great example of the racing that can happen and what you can get out of it as well.
So kind of going into the super late models before we get into the Alive for 5 feature, now with our unified rules up here in the Midwest, that's going to drastically help that, because now guys can literally change gear and shocks and springs and they can go run anywhere they want because they know their car will fit the rules. So you're going to have guys unloading, and you look at schedules, our Alive for 5 feature 1 winner, you look at his schedule, he's going all over the place to run everywhere, and you're going to see those guys not only weekly, but you're going to see them with the Midwest Tour. You're going to see them with the Alive for Five. So, I just think in that same effort, that really does support our Midwest racing in terms of you do something you don't like, next week you might be racing with each other again, and you might get one. So it just it eliminates that factor of junking a guy to win a race.
Let's go back to the trucks again real quick. Obviously, we did have a winner. Chester Ace won that race, got out front early and just pulled away. In that one. Again, really clean racing throughout, except for that little mix up with Mueller and Swamp. But again, a racing deal there. We had ourselves on Brandon Reichenberger's truck this weekend as well. He kind of stuck in traffic a little bit.
Those between Swan and Mueller running side by side, it kind of backed up the 3-4 rows behind them, and it was a little congested, and then that last restart, Brandon just kind of got stuck on the outside, and the outside line didn't quite go, which he took the shortest line at the time. So you can't blame him for making a decision to try to make a few spots. But that on that last restart, that the outside line just didn't quite go. And I think there was only like 8 to go. 7, 8 to go. They ran like 40 or 41 green until they had that caution, and then they kind of regrouped the guys late, and Chester Ace he was fired off and was gone.
Yep.
So yeah, good feature, good clean race, and it was good to see the Midwest trucks back in action. So
quick rundown real quick. Chester Ace was first, Jacob Nottestad running some truck races this year. Second, Brad Mueller third, Kevin Kniese fourth, Bryce Miller fifth, and like we said, Brandon Reichenberger came out in sixth in that one.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So
20 trucks in that race.
Yeah, fun to watch. They had upwards of 30 trucks running the night. So good turnout for the season opener. Talking of good turnout for the season opener, Alive for Five, Icebreaker 100. It was the big one to start the year. What did we say? We had 35 cars checked in?
Yeah, I don't have my list with me.
It was 35 or 36.
35.
Didn't quite get to the 40, but
35 qualified.
I mean, where does it start other than qualifying?
They were putting some laps down.
You got the likes of Ryan Farrell and Luke Fenhouse, your defending Alive for Five champ, who did not lock themselves into the top 16 to make the feature.
Michael Bilderback, Bobby Kendall, Dalton Zier, Brock Heinrich. You had a solid B main race.
Absolutely.
Solid B main. Well, Kevin, we had a couple qualifiers that took out 2 cars out of each. So that took out a couple of guys. But again, that last chance, he had a hell of a field in that last chance.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I mean, it started with qualifying where it was just you had some surprises, guys that would come out quick and guys that kind of struggle in qualifying. And I think it comes to the conversation, we had talked about this on the ride up, was the new super late model tire. A lot of these guys were on that tire for the first time and seeing that. So a couple guys said during practice and kind of just bumming around, you kind of heard a couple guys say it didn't really make a difference. But I think when you come to it, looking at Gabe Summers, who was your fast qualifier, $1,000 out of that whole deal. He had the most consistent lap times, but he's also got 14, 15 races on that new tire. So
yeah,
they maybe had a little more to go off of in terms of
more of a notebook.
Yeah, on these new super late model ST1 and 2 tires that they were running. So, yeah, Gabe Summers was their overall fast qualifier. $1,000 out of that, pretty cool deal to make $1,000 in quick time.
Yeah.
Which shout out to all the sponsors that stepped up for that feature. That was there was money all over the board, from leading at halfway to lap 74 leader for money to qualifying to even the finished payout for a $5,000 to win feature to start the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome to see the monetary.
The guys showed up and the money shows it. Sponsors show it. And the crowd showed up too.
Oh, the crowd. We'll post there'll be a short going out here shortly on our channel here as well, but we'll post some pictures of that. And
That
we had
crowd was insane.
it was literally standing room only.
Yep.
And when they were getting to the end of practice, the line out the gate out the back was nuts.
Qualifying, even started heat races.
Yeah, there's still line out the gate
Still
to get
lining out the gate. Yeah. Oh man, like I was telling you, I'm glad we got food when we did because I don't think we would have had a chance.
in. Yeah, it was crazy. Awesome crowd.
Did you guys go back and anybody get a little frisky at the concession stands
Nope,
after?
I stuck with the good old fashioned.
So we're sitting
Didn't
there and he
want to go
sits
for a
down.
roller dog or anything?
No, he unwrapped his cheeseburger and I said, "Did you watch the podcast?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Well, did you take any recommendations on what you should be getting at the concession stand?" He goes, "Come on." But
Hey, I got another random question that I'm going to ask just because of the job that I have. So Ty Fredrickson wins that, not to spoil it, but Ty Fredrickson wins that race. Does that go as income under his name? How is this money taxed?
it'd have to go under whatever the team. I think
It
it's
would go
the team.
under the team. Yeah.
I think they
The
between him
payouts
and
go to the team.
I
So
believe
basically, like the team is the business, and the business earns income.
The
Okay,
driver acts as a contractor in a way.
got it. Okay,
I think it's
got it.
technically I think it's Team 36 Racing is what they're
Yeah.
between both him and Dan. I think they're team 36.
That's
Got
why
it.
you see like Gabe Sommers racing and yeah, team 36 racing. I'm trying to think of the Majeski team. But anyways, Gearheads. That's
Yep.
why you see like everybody have a team name because it gets paid out to the team.
Got it.
Yeah.
Good to know. Interesting.
So yeah, qualifying was tough. Let's get to
Which-
the actual
To that point, Joe Gibbs Racing, they have their president do a lot of informational stuff on racing. That's the only reason I know that is because of that TikTok that I saw with the president explaining that. So good follow if you're interested to know a little bit of that information. Gives you some of the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So the actual 100 lap feature, let's get into the racing part of it.
Yes.
I mean, I think the first real big storyline comes of Gabe Summers.
Holy
It's been a long time since we've seen a super late model grenade a motor like that one did.
grenade is maybe an understatement. That thing blew.
It went up in smoke and poor Devoy, and he posted on Facebook that they're not going to run Slinger this weekend. They're just going to kind of evaluate. So he pulled out a Slinger because that car went up in smoke coming off of 4, kind of going across the finish line. And it was so smoky that all you saw was you heard Devoy hit and then the smoke went away and he was nose first.
Nosed it right in. Yep. Just got caught in the oil path.
We were listening to him and he just said, he goes, "I saw the smoke and lifted and I was along for the ride."
Yeah.
So again, he spun around and nose first into the wall, was able to climb out and
like I was telling you, that car was still smoking when Sommers got into the pit.
yeah.
That thing.
Oh, that video where he pulled it like to his hauler and parked it, and it was just spewing smoke.
Yeah.
That like the old Gen 6 Gen 5 cup cars, like the 2007, 2006 cars when they blew and that just you got that big puff of smoke. That's exactly what that Super did.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it obviously in the chat when you guys said that he blew up. The mechanical gremlins for Sommers have been living with his team and traveling with them.
That was the second motor of the weekend.
Yeah.
And this is 2 months after he at Speed Weeks in Florida when he was having mechanical issues, and
he didn't even roll for the Stars race down there either. He couldn't get
off. So like he spun in practice, kind of backed it, tapped if tapped to the wall. You always you got to remember with those cars too, if you backspin that engine, it comes back to bite you later in the race. I wonder if that's what happened.
Yeah. If it got spun backwards.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
I wonder if that's what happened.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's unfortunate for him because he just, again, if he didn't have any luck at all, the luck he did have was going to be bad luck.
Yeah.
So hate that for
Well,
Devoy. There's nothing you can do. It's just,
it took out 2 good cars right out of the gate too. I was
yeah,
about a little after halfway,
yeah, they were both in the top
or just before
6.
halfway, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, they were like 4th, 5th, 6th, somewhere in that neighborhood. As that kind of whole thing expired,
Yep.
literally expired. So that was the big first storyline going into that. As the race went along, you had a few guys that got in a couple of little tussles. There were a couple of guys that were vocal with one another, you would say. Jeff Storm and Ryan Farrell. And Ryan Farrell, coming from a last chance, had an absolute hell of a race.
Yeah.
Started 24th, finished second. He ran through there, and if they didn't get that late caution, he was going to find himself in victory lane. And he said he's pissed, and we're going to regret this one forever. But as he was parked on the front stretch there, Jeff Storm came along, and he had the window net down, and there was some finger pointing going on where Storm had caught some front end damage, and they went to the pits and listening. They thought they were done, and then they pulled the ductwork out, so the motor got a little air, and then they were able to go ahead and finish that feature. But a frustrated Jeff Storm. I didn't see what instance exactly sparked that.
Yeah, I didn't either, unless it was kind of that same situation in Swan where Farrell could maybe caught the rumble strips a little too hard and shot up, and
Yeah. And then late in the race, Johnny DeAngelis and Max Kaler. Johnny DeAngelis gets turned around. Lucky he didn't send that car up the ramp. That was headed for the ramp in turn 2.
lucky he didn't break something in the suspension too, because he got drilled right in that left rear.
So he got turned around fairly hard, and he as well, he said
Voiced
that
his displeasure.
he voiced his displeasure, and he said he will make it known that there's one coming. So
Well, and like we were just saying too, it's if you spin a guy, I mean, yes, it ruins your day, it ruins their day, because up here you get both to get sent to the back. You know, Storm, he's got to spend a couple hours fixing that nose. DeAngelis didn't have any damage out of it that we know of, at least, but that ruins a guy's day.
Yeah. So those are kind of two of the big tussles, not tussles, guys that got together.
It's a long season yet too.
Yeah, let's go back to Ryan Farrell.
Took a provisional, by the way.
Took a provisional, started 24th. After the scuff session, I was listening to them. They were actually, and I don't know if they ever did, but they were contemplating a gear change.
Yep.
They had the new tires on, and he even said, he goes, it feels like it's got too much gear in it. And he goes, what do you think? And then the mic went silent. So they were potentially looking at making a gear change in that car going into those odd even dashes. So finds a provisional, finds his way in, and if DeAngelis doesn't get turned late in that race, he runs away with that one.
Oh, absolutely.
He had
absolutely.
And he mentioned when they interviewed him, he said after the race that Stormy's never really wanted to be that vocal about it. He'll go back and either watch it or see what happened. And he said, I didn't want that to happen that way. So again,
sure they'll meet each other at some point in time and talk about it too. And
yeah, there'll be a conversation about it in some fashion. So but yeah, that kind of regroups the field, and then you had basically 3 cars that were going to duke it out for the win. That being Casey Johnson, Ty Fredrickson, and Ryan Farrell.
Who Casey Johnson led a good part of that race too.
Yeah,
started up front and stayed up front.
By far led the most laps in that feature.
Yep.
Ultimately what it comes down to is Johnson and Farrell kind of touched a little bit. It loosened them up, and Ty Fredrickson was at the right place at the right time, kept his nose clean, and he was there, and he led the last 6 laps or so.
Yeah. Ty could run that outside too.
Yeah.
Could hold his own. That outside was in that entire weekend, that Saturday.
Absolutely. And he even on a couple, I was listening to the radio, he even on a couple, that first restart, he was early enough that they could restart on the outside. And Dan just said, I'll get you down when I can get you down, but let's try it. It's early enough. We can try it. If it doesn't go, I'll get you down. And he goes, do you know what you did? Do you know what you need to do on this next restart? And there's kind of silence. And then Ty goes, well, no. And Dan goes, well, I don't really want to say it over the radio, but
He
again,
had to
kind of
pull a Denny Hamlin.
a young gun, learning on the fly, and Dan talked him through it on the radio, and kudos to him for doing that, because you're in a tough spot when you got to do that.
Yeah.
But talked him through it, and at the end of the day, they had the right line selection at the end of that race to be able to be there at the right time. So
Can we talk about Dan's teaching moments for a little bit? He's very unique in his teachings.
and you got to remember, it's a little different teaching style when you're working with your son and not somebody you've got driving your car.
And a guy that is a little bit of a hard ass.
He did, and honestly, when you talked him through the race, a lot of the time he was just reminding him, "We're all right.
Yep.
We're better than them. Just get back in."
Especially that restart with where he lost it to Johnson, damn near he went up the track, almost lost third, or yeah, almost went to third, finally gathered back up, and Danny was on him for 2 laps, constantly on the radio. He's like, calm down, gonna be all right.
We're good. We got a better car.
Yep.
Head in the game. So yeah, and you can't blame the kid. He's racing the best of the best in the Midwest, and he was right there the entire race.
And he lets him race him too. Like the one restart, he says, it's on you, bud.
Yep.
I'll stay off the radio.
Yep. And at the end of the day, you got to let him learn a little bit too.
Oh, absolutely.
He's racing one of the best in the Midwest in Casey Johnson. So
a lot of the best in the Midwest.
And you're going to have to figure out what the tendencies are, or what the different tricks of a restart are going to be, and when they fire, and what if they're in high gear or not, and that
the line you got to run.
Yeah, a lot of coaching going on, but that was cool to listen to.
Yeah,
I enjoyed listening to that and seeing what the strategies were on a restart, what they were expecting, and how to go about it. So. But hell of a race. We opened the season with a bang.
Yes.
We opened the season with a bang, and Dells did a hell of a job with that whole show. And
how about just the fact that 15-year-old Ty Fredrickson whooped everybody's ass?
Yeah.
Took it to him.
Yeah. He started inside row 2.
He started 5th.
Okay. He was in, you said it. You took him.
Yeah. I picked him at the beginning of the race. I said, screw it. Go with the young gun.
And I took Johnson. I took the savvy vet coming off of the Halloween win. I figured it's so yeah, it was a hell of a race. But
you also realize that Ryan Farrell was technically the defending winner of this race as well.
Yeah,
because he won that first stint of doubleheader. That was the makeup of this.
Yep.
So I also got to give a shout out to one of my other favorite drivers out there, Blake Brown. So he was not there in attendance, but he obviously was watching at home. I want to bring up his post because it was great. Just a full acknowledgement, basically. He said, absolutely phenomenal race between 2 of my favorite drivers to watch and 2 of the best in the country, which is insane to talk about Ty in that sense. And it's Johnson and Fredrickson just side by side with each other. And he just simply says, man, I love short track racing.
Yeah.
So this is coming from another driver too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ty Fredrickson wins the race. Ryan Farrell runs P2. Casey Johnson finishes that race 3rd.
Dalton Zier, another hard charger, 23-4.
Yeah.
Fenhouse, 17-5.
Yep.
Tristan Swanson held his own. Riley Stenham got up there. Bobby Kendall, 19-8. Race Hayes, 26-9th. So you had a few hard chargers in there.
Yeah, a lot of guys making some ground. So
good race.
Hell of a bang, and we'll touch on our race previews. We go right into another one on Sunday on the 21st at Slinger. So yep. We'll touch on that in our race previews. But Any final thoughts before we jump over to Cup at Texas recap?
I'm so glad we're back.
Yeah. You're excited to be there. You're excited to smell it. You're excited to hear it.
My summer's
obviously,
built.
go ahead.
I was gonna say my weekends are booked.
I was gonna say not only obviously I wasn't there, but not only does it sound like you had good racing, but what adds fuel to the fires when you go to a storyline or go to a racetrack and you got storylines building and anytime two guys get next to each other, there's gonna be no give and all take. And so obviously you want clean racing, but sounds like we've got some good storylines for it being the first race of the year that can continue to follow, and it's going to continue to put on good racing.
For sure.
Again, great crowd, fantastic weather. Just you could not have asked for a better day.
A better early April day.
A better, yes, 100%.
Yeah.
About as good as it could be.
Hats off to all of the Dallas Raceway Park staff, Midwest Truck Tour staff, Alive for 5 staff. The show itself was run to
pretty
a T.
Damn good. Yep.
Absolutely. So can't forget about those as well, working at our racetracks.
Yep.
So, all right, let's go ahead and jump into the Cup of Texas. And we go from guys getting together to guys spinning on their own religiously, time and time again.
That third lane was treacherous.
The bumps in 3 and 4 were treacherous.
We'll talk about that later. Let's talk about some of the storylines that came out of this still. But I think that first big, man, this is going to be something. Bell wrecking early.
He was going to be a favorite. He was going to be a favorite to be there at the end of that race. That was a little hit to the old fantasy lineup right out of the gate.
Yeah, I was going to say the old Sam Mayer year for me continues.
Let me look at this here because he did get his lap back eventually. Finished 17th.
Yeah. With a smashed up race car.
It's bad when he had that smashed up race car and no right front and his tail end is smashed up. And I'm sitting here watching this race and I tell Carolyn that she's got to put Christopher Bell back in her lineup because McDowell backed it into the wall. And I'm like, and I pull up my live feed on the NASCAR app and I'm like, dude's in 24th on the lead lap. I'm like, Larson's 2 laps down right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy.
Talk about another big moment in that race too.
And the interesting part of that whole deal is he ran a couple laps before the tire came off.
Yeah. For what's known to be a very solid pit crew.
Yeah.
A very rare mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Especially out of Hendrick camp.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, you talk about the Hendrick camp, you go from that to Chase Elliott, who I think they put together the fastest 4-tire pit stop out of any crew the entire year this past weekend.
Yep. They put together the fastest single lug stop to date. With it was 8.94 is what the number was.
I was gonna say 8.94 or 6.4, but yeah, did see that.
And at the end of the day, what got him out front was that strategy call. They ran long and they got that caution at just the right time. And knowing how detrimental track position is or was at Texas, that got him what he needed to be up front.
Yep.
So,
with that Bell wreck though, that and that treacherous third lane, you got a numerous number of spins that those bumps caught Bowman over there in turn 3. Spun him
Josh
out.
Berry.
You talked about McDowell, Josh Berry. I mean, though that third lane of those bumps were they were getting the guys. Johnson in practice and just
Reddick almost bit him there at the end. I mean,
Denny Hamlin might have been a little bit of an arrow thing, but
it's a little bit of an arrow thing, but yeah.
Still, I mean, other places you don't see them lose it like that.
Yeah.
So
When you see a lot of guys back it into the wall,
That's the concern.
which
Especially with
it's a
the
softer rear end
Yep,
than
and
what it has been.
they've amended that issue of backing into the fence.
Yep.
So,
But that's just, man, it was just a matter of who's going to spin this time
Yep.
around. Well, what
sure.
did Mike Joyce say? 3 guys wrecked from or spun from second
Yeah,
because you had Hamlin, McDowell, and then Chastain there at the end.
yep.
Chastain's obviously was a different deal, but it had something to do with it because he got caught in that third lane, had a lift, and
I had him in my fantasy lineup too, in case you were wondering.
I'm
I'm pulling up our favorite segment of the week.
well, hold off on that. We'll get to that in due time.
just you're ready to talk about your season, but Hank, hold that thought just for a second here. Let's let's get in. Oh yeah, Gluck poll. The last I saw, there was 5,000 votes. It was 75-25. It was a good race.
I haven't even voted on that yet.
That was what I was pulling it up.
Okay.
You guys shut me down.
Well, I thought you were getting to...
I thought he was headed for fantasy.
I thought so too.
No, it was 73-27. Yes, it was a good race.
Which is honestly, that seems very off tempo from what we've been seeing lately.
Yes and no. I think I compare it to the races that had long green flag runs. Those were the ones that kind of took a no. Martinsville was one.
And I think that's part. So I think there's 2 contributing factors to it. One, the green flag runs. You had a little bit more caution breakup, a little bit more strategy play, and you had the wrecks. Let's be honest, you had the wrecks to go with it.
Yep.
And 2, you had Elliott win, which spoiler alert.
Yeah, I mean NASCAR's most popular driver.
Correct. So I think that was 2 factors. I think if Elliott doesn't win, I think we're looking at a 65.
I would agree.
Yeah.
But to me, it's interesting you get that, because I also start to wonder a little bit about, Netflix ran the series on NASCAR. Are we drawing in some new fans?
Oh, I think so. Absolutely.
Does the long green flag runs that we enjoy with the strategy calls not quite the feel that a new fan is looking for?
Yeah.
But I will say that's one thing why I enjoyed this race so much, because you had that, but then some of these other races, like, it's just been long green flag runs, and that's where you lose a new fan, where it's like, yep, they're just going in a circle.
Yeah.
But this race I really enjoyed, because like it was one of those you couldn't take your eyes off the TV.
Yeah.
Because it was, somebody's going to try running the third lane, and somebody's backing it into the wall.
Well, so to that point, I had to go use the facility, and I missed Barry backing into the wall and Larson lose his tire.
Oh. So you came back going, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, exactly. What the hell happened?
The facility for a half hour.
Exactly. Yeah, man had to go. But anyways, yeah, it's just, I don't know. That like I said, it just seems off tempo, but that's not a bad thing either, that we're getting good races. To that point though, like my grandpa, every weekend, he looks at tickets right before the race, just what seats are open, kind of gets a gauge of like, all right, how is the crowd going to look? He said in one section that he looked, he said the most amount of open seats that he found in one section was 42. And he said everybody else had like 5, 10, 15. So he's like, I would have considered it a sold out crowd. And it showed.
Yeah, it was full. It was packed.
Yeah. Which I was surprised, especially after some of the comments that the drivers had.
Well, you saw that from some of the NASCAR reporters. I don't know who it was, Gluck or somebody put out on right before the race on X. They put pleasantly surprised with this crowd. So
I did catch a comment in the broadcast about changing the date for Texas, that they're not competing with the NFL.
That might have something to do with it. Yep.
So that was one that I caught, and I'm like, that's a very, very good point, that you're not competing with that on a Sunday.
But you also lose the playoff race in that factor for Texas as well.
Correct. Which I don't know if I like that now, seeing the product.
But again, if you move it back in the playoffs, you're now head to head with the NFL. So I think as far as Texas goes, I mean, if we're talking about dates, I think you got to keep it where it's at.
Yep. It's got to be before
ultimately,
the
they don't care. It doesn't matter if it's a playoff race or not. You got to get butts and seats.
And it did.
Yep.
It did just that.
Which I could talk about Road America. It's all blue in the face, but we'll leave that alone.
So kind of going, let's go twofold on this. So we talked about the racing, we talked about the fan turnout, we talked about butts in the seats. Let's talk about the conversation of a repave.
I think it's the same conversation what Atlanta was. Drivers love character in a track.
Leave it alone.
Yep. Leave it alone until you absolutely have to.
Because otherwise it turns into another Atlanta.
Yep. And I don't want another Atlanta.
No. I don't mind Atlanta. It's unique in its own way, but I don't
if
want
if you repave it, you have to keep it the traditional 1.5 miles.
I don't want a 1.5 mile super speedway.
Yes.
A 1.5 miles needs to be a 1.5 miles.
Atlanta's good for what it is, but it needs to stay Atlanta.
I think Texas needs to stay a traditional 1.5 miles.
Absolutely.
So I know the guys have kind of talked about that a little bit with the weather and in the winter and changing that surface a little bit. And guys were looking at the surface and what it had done and all of the data on that side. But leave it until you absolutely have to do something.
Yep. Because I saw something too that they have not reapplied any resin or, sticky stuff to the track since 22, I think.
Yeah.
So I would say you're starting to get to the natural track at that.
Yep. And maybe in the later part of this surface, maybe a little sticky stuff isn't the worst, and maybe that saves a couple guys from wrecking. You don't know how that goes with tires.
Maybe it brings in that third lane.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it lets guys move up a groove and find some clean air, and that creates a little more passing.
Yep. Obviously, we're no engineers by any means on that, but
we're spitballing. We're trying to keep Texas.
We keep on saying that stuff happens. We should maybe try this and this, or somebody needs to do this and this, and then they go and do it. So
we are kind of on a hot streak here. But
so Texas, if you're listening,
if you're listening, NASCAR, if you're listening, just leave it alone for a little bit longer. It kind of the mentions does this race find itself in the conversation of best race of the year thus far?
I mean, Atlanta's hard to beat, I think, right now.
Bristol was super hard to beat too.
Bristol was also very hard to beat, but you got a lot of racing. I mean, Christ, we're going to Talladega next weekend. So
that Bristol race was by far my favorite race of the year. The tire stuff was incredible.
You got Dover coming up too.
Yeah. We're all
Darlington. A repaved North Wilkes, that's got to be something. A repaved North Wilkesboro with them running as fast as they were.
Kansas,
you got Iowa.
We'll see.
But you got a lot of good racing coming up yet.
A lot of unknowns.
Indy. We're going back to Indy.
Yeah, oval.
Well,
rectangle.
I mean, and again, with the car that we have now, that's acting more of a sports car. We might have a different type of racing going on there too.
Yep.
So no, is it in the conversation for a race of the year? Sure, absolutely. But I think you gotta pump the brakes as far as yes, yep.
To this date. Yep, to this date and time. So race results.
I'm gonna put that on our list here of race of the year contenders.
Perfect. So as
I was actually thinking, sorry, Kellen. Last thing, while you're typing,
I was just gonna say, as we actually look at the race results here, Chase Elliott 1, Brad Keselowski 2, Byron 3, Reddick 4, Suarez 5, Briscoe 6, Dillon 7, Bubba Wallace 8th, Kyle Busch 9, Carson Hocevar rounds out your top 10. So
Damn, you wanted to throw something in there.
I was just gonna say off-season topic next year. The pit crew ranks the 2024 races from 1 to 36.
Boy. All right.
you're gonna have to do a lot of research on that, but I'm here for it.
I'm here for it as well.
It's gonna take a little research. That's without it.
Yeah, let me let's see.
But no, Kel, to your point, the top 10, Carson Hocevar, somebody that spun out, self-induced spun and got himself his first top 10 of the early season. So
I was rooting so hard for Brad K.
Oh,
I
so
know.
was I.
I wanted to see Brad K burn it down.
That's going to be one of those when it's not a matter if, it's going to be a matter of when he gets that win. That's going to be a everybody loves it type of thing.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how he celebrates because I know he's going to be stoked.
Yeah,
A guy that doesn't show a lot of emotion, I think he'll show a ton of emotion.
absolutely.
He was
So,
feisty about not getting P2 too in his interview.
he said, I want to see a replay before I concede that.
Yep. He
Yeah.
got it back.
He absolutely did. He got it back for sure. So
no, I think Texas definitely lived up a little bit more to what the expectations were.
yeah,
And I think it's just right now, just keep it where it's at. Don't need to
yep,
add a date, don't need to move it, don't need to do anything with the track, just leave it where it's at.
absolutely. So, any final thoughts as we kind of wrap up Texas?
good race. Enjoyed it.
I think
For
this
sure.
also shakes up the standings a little bit because now you got another winner in there.
Yep. Another Hendrick winner in that.
Got that right. So it's turning out to be quite the year. We might be having quite the conversations here as we get to the later part of the year. And with this, we officially are quarter way through the season as well.
Yep. Absolutely. So, that
None,
wraps up a
I was
wild
gonna say
Texas.
one final thought. Not another. They haven't strung it together, but obviously there where there's smoke, there might be a little fire. SHR has been in the news for the wrong reasons, but another team that not all four cars, but they are getting two of four. It feels like every week that are showing speed that are in the top 10.
Yep.
So obviously they're in the news for the wrong reasons in the charters, but still a team that for as bad as they were last year, they are definitely trending in the right direction.
Yeah, you had Briscoe in sixth. You had Priest in 12th, which there's another discussion in its own right with him and Blaney. Gregson in 18th. And then where am I looking here? Barry in 36, which obviously he had a rough start of the season continues for him.
I'm the Priest Blaney conversation. I'm Team Ryan on that one.
Which one?
Team Ryan.
Well,
Door bumper clear. Door bumper clear. Tweeted the in car from Priest and said, "I'm Team Ryan."
Of course. Stirring the pot.
Yep.
Blaney had that thing three lanes wide. Priest had to go.
And he backed up one really hard.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways,
Priest kind of sailed that one off in there. But let's go ahead and get into some race previews, huh?
Yeah, let's see what's coming up this weekend.
Van Grohl, I'll kick it to you for Cup at Dega.
Yeah, Cup at Dega. I think Fords are licking their chops here. They love their super speedway racing. They always hook up pretty well. Obviously with Talladega being what it is, you could have that surprise winner coming in. Looking at last year, Kyle Busch won race 1, which is very uncharacteristic for him, but you had Blaney win race 2 in his playoff run that he had. So, obviously it's a who could survive and who's going to be there at the end. And as I always say, you got to be within camera shot to win. And that's what I think it's going to take this weekend. So obviously Dega always ends up being a good race. So you got to be sure you're tuned in for that.
Jam? You always like the
Um,
dirt late models. What do you got?
Dirt late models. um, World Outlaw late models. Thunderhill Raceway Thursday night. That's a reschedule from March 22nd, 10,000 win. And then as I'm looking at this, maybe something we should consider in the future. They're heading to Talladega Short Track. So if you're in the Talladega area, obviously Cup's going to be there this weekend. Friday night, 4,000 to win. And then Saturday night, got a big payday, 35,000 to win. So
Damn.
stay tuned for that. And yeah, we're going dirt track racing at Talladega.
And then the last big preview before we get into some race picks and fantasy recaps for the week. ASA Midwest Tour finally kicks off their season at Slinger. And Van Grohl
Let's go.
He's itching to get going again for the third week in a row now for him. Midwest Tour kicks off the season at Slinger Sunday, April 21st. As of April 14th, you got 40 super late models on the entry list. So
probably 39 with Devoy pulling out now.
39 now at Devoy, but a couple different factors going into this. So a lot of guys are going to use this kind of as, for some of them, are going to be a test and tune for Slinger Nationals. So you have the likes of Derek Kraus, Ty Majeski, Fenhouse, Richie Bickle, and then guys that are on your Midwest Tour, Justin Mondyke, Riley Stenjem, Gabe Summers, Cody King, Max Kaler, Vandergeest, finally getting on some racing. But then this is also a points race, the first weekly points race for them as well. So you're going to see some guys that are going to run weekly: RJ Braun, DeStefano, Rich Locke, Dennis Prunty, Brad Mueller, Steve Apel. And then to go with that, you got other guys with Mitch Haver, Ryan Farrell, Johnny DeAngelis. List goes on and on. It's again, we go from one absolute hell of a race to another in back-to-back weeks for this one. So it'll be a big one for the Midwest Tour. RJ Braun was your 2023 winner of this feature. For that race on Sunday, qualifying 12:05 p.m., racing at 2 p.m. So if you're in the eastern Wisconsin area and you're looking for some racing on a Sunday afternoon, that will be going on starting at 12:05, leading up to racing at 2. And then you also have to remember you have support division as well that run for their weekly points. So there'd be no lack of action at the world's fastest quarter mile.
Let's go. Let's go.
So let's go ahead and take a peek at the schedule. Other likes that we have coming up for this weekend. You have World Outlaw Sprint Cars at Paducah. On the 19th, you have High Limit Sprint Cars at Southern Oklahoma on the 19th.
Got a couple local stuff going as well.
Yep, you got the Badger Midget Auto Racing at Beaver Dam. You got the Wabam Dirt Late Models at Beaver Dam for their Wisconsin Triple Crown. Arca Menards heads to Kevin Harvick's Kern Raceway. Cars Tour, both the late model stocks and the pro late models back in action at Orange County Speedway. And then Xfinity will follow NASCAR to Talladega. USAC Silver Crowns headed to Toledo. World Outlaw Sprint Cars head to Tri-State Speedway. Formula One going to, is that Shanghai?
Yep.
Shanghai. NTT IndyCar Series heads to the streets of Long Beach.
They also got a double header with the IMSA WeatherTech.
Yep. He took that one. That was the next one I was headed to. So we got quite the list of races going on here. That's including the ones that we had just previewed with World Outlaws, Cup, and Midwest Tour. So,
and we got Tuesday, like we said, with the midweek series with Highlands, Thursday with Outlaws, and then of course Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yep. So
Run a little
there's
bit of a football schedule here.
you got racing any night of the week that you want to watch it. So that's where we're at for what's upcoming. And then finally, let's take a dive into Cameron's favorite topic of the week. NASCAR fantasy. So looking, go ahead.
I mean, my week went roller coaster-esque. I
finished
had
ahead the top 3 guys.
correct,
Gained
but
on us.
the Chastain spinning on the last lap was crucial. But
All of us had somebody that didn't do well for us. We didn't have anybody over that 200-point mark this week.
No.
We're just kind of the split between a good and a bad week.
So the weekly, so this was for your Texas race results. Sophie's pit picks 186, Kurt Busch 183, Cam at 181, Van Grohl at 179, Dietz at 161, myself at 147, and then Cam, your girlfriend Carolyn, at 126. So that was the Texas weekly, and then the overall.
I gained some ground on you this weekend.
Yep, you guys picked up a little bit on me. I'm leading at 1722. Van Grohl 1717. Dietz at 1649. Cam at 1546. Abby at 1522. Carolyn at 1464, and Kurt Busch at 1402. So that kind of
Sophie's Abby's making some ground on us.
She's figuring it out here, being a week late to the show. She's killing the pick'ems.
Yeah.
And that's
those 10 bonus points can go a long ways.
Absolutely.
Talk about your fantasy lineup. Carolyn's she's figuring out the roller coaster she's on right now.
Wait until we get to 22 to 26 of the regular season. The drivers you want to pick aren't available.
Well, so she had Larson and that.
So that's where we're at for schedules, a weekly and overall fantasy recap. The last thing we got on the docket. Let's go ahead and pick a nightmare winner for Talladega, and that being a super speedway race.
So the picking order does not change. Obviously, Cam picked Bowman last week. He obviously did not have a great day. I picked Bubba Wallace, then Kellen had William Byron last week. So actually, we got the same picking order as last week. So Cam, you get first dibs. Throw your dart at the dartboard and see who you get.
You know who loves a super speedway and they're winless yet this year? Give me Brad K.
Damn it.
That's not a bad pick. So I got to go with the obvious one here for myself. I got to go with Blaney.
Wow. That was
detrimental.
Yeah. He won this race a year ago. I like to pick repeat winners. I'll take Kyle Busch.
All right.
Quite the spread.
2 Fords and a Chevy.
Yep.
No faith in the Toyotas.
Nope. Brad K will be out front and he'll push somebody too hard. Leave that there.
Look at last year's race, the first race, I should say. The highest finishing Toyota was 8th in Christopher Bell. If we look at the second one, just real quick, Denny Hamlin was the highest finishing Toyota in 3rd. The next one after that was Christopher Bell in 14th.
Okay. At the end of the day, it's all going to be about what manufacturers can get linked up the quickest.
And staying out of trouble.
Yep. So, if you want to jump in on it, you can obviously go ahead and drop your race picks in the comments. But that wraps up what's been the 30th edition of the Tuesday Track Talk. As always, if and when you can, make sure you're getting out to your local racetrack, whether that be NASCAR, dirt, asphalt, super speedway, short track, whatever you can get to. support them. They always appreciate it and enjoy it, and the drivers love the interaction as well. So make sure you're supporting them. And as always, if you're looking to listen on the go, you can go ahead and catch us on Spotify. Links are in all of the bios for our socials. I'll post that on our Twitter and Instagram as well. So if you're looking to listen on the go ahead and hop on there. Otherwise, that wraps up Tuesday Track Talk. Stay tuned for race previews. But until then, we'll see you next week.